What's up, y'all? Welcome to the inaugural Rabbit Hole Rundown. I'm going to hope to post one of these probably once a week, probably aiming for every Sunday or every Monday. And in each Rabbit Hole Rundown, I'll review some of the interesting information that I came across the past week. Obviously, down the rabbit hole news, we cover UFOs, hidden history, consciousness, health, and astrology. So I'll be touching on hopefully all of those topics each week, obviously depending on what info I come across. But a little bit about why I'm doing this. Obviously, I run a Twitter channel and a TikTok channel, but going back to 2020, late 2024, 2025, probably the worst year and a half of my life, and I came across astrology. It really helped me realign with the things that I need to do in this life, and made me realize what my path was. And no matter how hard I fight against what my path is, I've come to discover that I'm supposed to share information with people and lead people in some capacity. So I'm doing this for myself more than anything, and hoping that I reap good karma from this. But I'm supposed to kind of wear my karma on my sleeve and do my actions out there in public. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And if anyone wants to know more about themselves, I really urge you to go look into your Vedic astrology chart. I think there's uses for tropical astrology, but I found sidereal Vedic system to be much more in depth on who you are at a soul level and your own karma and things like that. So if you need a reading, hit me up. I'll probably charge you, but yeah, I can definitely help. I got some interesting topics for this. I'll try not to be too long. To be succinct, I have some interesting videos I'm going to show in the beginning, and then some scientific articles I'll show off at the end. So if you're only going to stick around for a little bit, just know that the interesting videos are in the beginning, and then more science heavy stuff where I read off articles is at the end. So feel free to bounce. Also, until I get a bigger following and more audience and some revenue coming from this, I'm gonna be pretty off the cuff and not edit these videos. I just don't have the time right now. I'm doing a lot of research and studying, and obviously got a job and things like that. So if it seems a little thrown together, they are. But I'm trying to share information and point people in the right direction. And once I get capacity or more free time or money coming from this, I'll definitely try to improve on things. Anyways, first and foremost, got some interesting info about the pyramid, and I really urge people to, if you're interested in this stuff, go watch this podcast. It's the Danny Jones podcast. He brought on this guy named Jeffrey Drum, who basically posits a new idea for what the pyramids are, and it really opened my eyes to just what he's saying, and I think he might be onto something. It really seems like the most plausible idea for what the pyramids were used for. So I'll quit talking and I'll play the video. Oops. Again, sorry, I'm not editing, so forgive me for these mishaps. Just ride through.
Reservoir, the water from the external reservoir was utilized in the central pyramid for the production of hydrochloric acid. So all of the mechanisms I'm proposing for the function of all these pyramids apply to each structure.
Yep.
Okay, so the pump gives us the exact amount of compression that can push this reaction into the final synthesis chamber. So this goes to the terraforming applications of the pyramids. So by using these cumulonimbus thunderstorm generators, creating thunderstorms and fertilizers, it's possible that the Saharan wet period is a man-made event. Terraforming. So the pyramids were used to make thunder and rainstorms that were combined with these fertilizers to terraform the Sahara and transform it from a desert into arable farmland. That's just a hypothesis.
That's wild.
They say that the Saharan humid period is a naturally occurring event.
Right.
From 8500 BC to 5300 BC.
Yeah.
Which is why I think this is the ideal time period for the operation of the Egyptian pyramids.
Oh, it lines up.
And it's possible that the pyramids themselves and these thunderstorm generator systems were actually producing the rainstorms that transformed the Sahara. And by utilizing these atmospheric nitrates and the nitrates created in the Red and Bent Pyramid, they were able to terraform the Sahara.
All right, this is a really profound idea, and I really urge people to go watch this entire podcast. There's 2 parts. They're both like 3.5 hours long. I only watched the first one, plan on watching the second one, so maybe I'll bring that up later. Also, if any of these topics interest you and you want to know more, and you're curious about what my thoughts are, just drop your ideas or questions in the comments, and I'll try to bring them up and go over them in the next episode. So, again, really profound idea. I think it like loops together so many loose ends about ancient history, obviously like the mystery of what the hell the pyramids are, what they're used for, why we see like water erosion and like clear signs that the pyramid, the Sphinx, and the Giza Plateau in general existed in a completely different climate than what we see today. And again, he mentions like the Kardashev scale, which is basically how you put civilizations into different types. I think there's type 1, type 2, type 3, based on how much control they have over their environment. Humans on Earth are not even at level 1. Level 1 is basically complete control of your environment so that you use it for your own benefit. So that's things like using the weather for energy and things like that. So he posits that the people who made the pyramids were actually a Kardashev scale or type 1 civilization. So they had control over the weather, and they used the weather for things like energy, and that the pyramid itself was used as like an alchemical tool to not only harness the energy from lightning and create a fertile area with rain, but also use that energy from lightning to transmute chemicals inside the pyramid, because the pyramid exists over moving water and telluric currents, as well as different deposits of gases that are under the pyramid. So it's a really profound idea. Like it's hard for me to explain it all and just to go quick walkthrough, but obviously he can do it a lot better than me. I really urge you to go listen to his ideas, because I think he's onto something, and I think this might be the year where we finally figure out what the pyramids are. I'm gonna try to keep this short. I realize I'm already at 7 minutes, so I'm gonna try to keep going. But yeah, if you're interested about this, drop questions or comments in the comments, and we'll round back. Next thing I want to bring up is Jeffrey Epstein, as I truly think he's the loose end that ties tons of conspiracies together. And the more that we learn about him, I think the more we really figure out how the world works itself. So take a listen.
Well, what does this all tell you? I mean, they're interested in Atlantis. They're interested in eugenics. They're interested in anti-gravity. What does that look like to you? And answer me this question. If Jeffrey Epstein had access to the deepest layer of the American deep state, where we have ongoing electrogravitics programs, where the truth about Atlantis is already known, and where eugenics research is probably already also being conducted in underground facilities, why would he be running some ghetto operation to replicate it himself? You follow? Like, if you're trying to figure out how a UFO flies, it means you don't have access to the ones being built by Lockheed.
Right.
If you're got some ranch out there and you have to like create a modeling agency to funnel women out there to this ranch, and you happen to have keycard access to an evolutionary biology program at Harvard, and you're going to figure out how to enhance some fetuses and like ghetto style impregnate these women with them, it means you don't have access to the deep underground military facilities where cutting edge eugenics research is probably taking place. So
I think he was trying himself to achieve parity.
Yes. Yeah. Not even parity, like something, some kind of foothold. That means he's on the outside. He's not working for the people who run the world. He's on the outside.
I mean, right.
This dude, Jason Jorjani, is like one of the smartest people I've ever heard speak. He has so much knowledge, and really respect his mind. And I find him interesting on every podcast I see him on. Though I did go onto his Twitter and I saw he's a Satanist, so it kind of makes me feel weird. But nonetheless, clearly super bright guy who knows a lot about how the world works, and I've learned a lot from him. So interesting idea. Was Jeffrey Epstein basically trying to replicate some of the technology and steal ideas from the powers that be that run the world? I'm not going to get too heavy into that right now, but I'm sure most people watching this probably have some idea of what I'm talking about. But it seems very plausible. I think the media tries to paint people a specific way to make you think a specific way, and it's always kind of suspect. Not to stick up for him, because I truly think that what he did was abhorrent, and don't like him. And I think the biggest thing we need to pick apart is like what he was doing to people. But media tends to make people one-dimensional, so that people only think of them that way. And when you start pulling on the threads of his life and like who he knew and what else he was doing, you start to kind of open doors that they probably want closed. So Antarctica ties, Atlantis ties, like you said, eugenics and things like that. It's very interesting, and makes me think that maybe Epstein was some kind of like double, triple agent. Obviously, he collected a lot of extortion materials on people across the world. But what if while he was doing that, he kind of saw the secrets that they held and, worked to get those secrets for himself or for somebody else? Another thing that I thought about is, I don't know if we'll ever get the full story or true answers on what was going on with Epstein and his mysterious death and things like that, because if he did have all these extortion materials, if the government takes him out, they now have all those materials and have the dirt on everybody everybody across the world that really matters. So why would they open that story up if they can make use of those materials now? It's like they have the keys now, right? Anyways, Jason Jorjani on Danny Jones again. Danny Jones' podcast is awesome, so I really urge you to go listen to that one as well. I think he's got some really interesting ideas in here, but let's keep it moving. So this one is basically about UFOs and what we can expect to learn in 2025. 2026. And I just want to pull up a list that I wrote of interesting things that we learned in 2025 quick, just so we can compare to what they're saying about 2026. So in 2025, related to UFOs and aliens, obviously we had the congressional hearing on UAP transparency in September. There was the release of the Age of Disclosure documentary, which I have yet to watch. There was a massive surge in reported UAP sightings. The numbers here, it says it looks like in the first half of the year alone, there was over 2,000 reports and thousands more by the year end. And then Americans for Safe Aerospace reported over 700 pilot submissions, their highest ever. So not only just citizens, but pilots reporting crazy accounts with UFOs. Lots of developments with AARO, that's AARO, Anomaly Resolution Office. And then lastly, the drone swarms and crazy lights and orbs that the people saw all across the U.S. East Coast, I think at the end of 2024 and early 2025. Anyways, here's what George Knapp, shout out to him, he's a legend, and Jeremy Corbell say about what to expect from 2026. I think it's going to be a big year for UFOs.
So expectations for 2026. I'm hoping this is the year of creatures. I'm hoping we talk about the pilots of the UAP or UFOs, but a couple things we know are going to happen. One is Jay Stratton is going to come out more publicly. And this is a guy who ran the UAPTF, right, the task force. He's had his hands in, I think people will find out. He's had his hands in the UFO topic a lot more than we've known up till now. I hope people find that out. But I am excited for Jay Stratton coming forward. I'm also excited for the movie Disclosure Day, which is a new Steven Spielberg movie. It's coming out June 12th, 2026. So there's a few kind of interesting things that should move the needle, separate from the idea that you and I are going to continue our reporting and our releases if we can, and we're close on a number of pieces of footage. If we get to the point where it's ready to go, then we're going to be putting it out. So I'm excited 2026. Are you excited for anything coming up 2026?
Well, I am. I've got some things of my own cooking that'll be revealed on Mystery Wire, that platform I had from KLAS TV that it went away for a couple of years. It's coming back. There's some good stuff coming, some documents that have been long promised but haven't been released yet. I was encouraged by Age of Disclosure. You and I got to see it early on at the South by Southwest. It was very impressive then. I think they made some editorial changes, and it came out and was blockbusters at the end. It really got a lot of attention. I do encourage people to watch that. If you've wondered who Jay Stratton is, man, he comes out of his shell on that. We got the only other on-camera episode or interview with him a couple of years ago and shared it on Weaponized, but he is like a star. He and Lou Elizondo are the stars of that film, along with 32 other national security folks who say, yeah, this stuff is real and you got to pay attention to it. I thought that was a fairly good counterbalance to the lack of serious coverage by mainstream media.
Okay, I think that's it for like what to expect for 2026, and I think it may raise an interesting point. Obviously, we've heard a lot about UFOs and like vehicles since what, like it was 2017, 2018, the Nimitz Tic Tac. I can't remember exactly, but we've heard a lot about UFOs in like the past almost 10 years now. Holy shit! But we really haven't heard much about aliens. We know that the government, at least they said this in a congressional hearing, that the government has had retrieval programs and that they have biologics, but we haven't heard anything about what these biologics look like. I, for one, am not really sold on the idea that aliens are traversing the universe and like landing on Earth, because how would they survive that travel unless they were like warping space-time in some fashion? You know, popping a hole through space-time and coming out another end, because the G-force, they wouldn't survive, number one. Number two is like the length of time it takes. It's like you'd waste your whole life in a tiny ship, right? So I don't really understand, but I'm excited. Hopefully 2026 we hear a lot more about aliens, if they are real, or just like what exactly is piloting these vehicles. I think it's like due time we start to hear about that. I got a couple articles and then another thing I want to mention about the invasion of Venezuela and the astrology related to that, but that's it for the videos this week. If that's all you were interested in, just want to let you know, because I won't be wasting time yet putting timestamps and all that. I will include links to all the stuff I'm talking about in the description, but that's as far as I'm going to go as far as editing until I get more of an audience. Anyways, so I'm sure most people heard U.S. invaded Venezuela early Saturday morning, and I just wanted to point out like some interesting astrology, and just like astrology can really tell you so much. So this is the natal chart for America, defined as people call this the Sibley chart. Obviously, we don't know the exact time the Declaration of Independence was signed, but people have theorized it was around 510. Obviously, it was 4th of July, 1776 in Philadelphia. So that makes, and again, I use the Vedic sidereal system. I'm not using tropical. I do think there is uses for tropical that I'm not quite sure exactly what they are right now, but I find sidereal to be much more accurate. And if we look at what's going on here, I think you might be able to see that as well. So that makes America a Scorpio ascendant with a Gemini sun and a Aquarius moon, and they have a lot of action, a lot of planets going on here, and Gemini. So this inner circle is America's chart, and the outer circle is what the planets were doing at the time of the invasion. I have that set at 1 a.m. So What I want to point out is we have all this action. These planets own. I can't really like dig into all the details in this video, but hopefully you know a little bit about astrology. And if you don't, hopefully this like convinces you to look into it. But there's 12 zodiacs. There's 9 major planets. 8 of them own signs. I guess you could say all 9 depending on the system, but each planet owns one of the zodiac signs. And obviously a sign corresponds to a house. So there's 12 signs, there's 12 houses in a chart. Each house represents a specific area of life, and a specific theme in that chart's, I guess you could say life in terms of America. But so we have the sun, Jupiter, Venus, and Mars all in America's 8th house of Gemini. So if we take a look, the sun lords Leo, that's the 10th house, that's the house of career. Jupiter owns Pisces and Sagittarius, that's the 2nd and the 5th. 2nd is possessions, values, the things that they hold. 5th is expression, the fruits of what you create. And then Venus is partnerships, business, relationships. And then that's the 7th house of Taurus. 12th house of Libra is expenses, the things you lose, things you have to let go of. And then Mars is in there as well. That's the ascendant lord. Wow, it's at 0 degrees. Oh, that's pretty cool. 0 degrees of Gemini, that's the ascendant lord. That's basically America in the chart. And then it also owns the 6th house, the house of conflict and the things that you have to do every day, debts as well. So we have Jupiter retrograde transiting the 8th house. And then what I want to point out is how the moon is basically 7 degrees away from America's natal sun. It starts to activate. When the moon transits a house and a sign, it activates what's natal in that sign. So the moon transiting Gemini activates all of America's planets right here. So it's pretty obvious astrologically why we see America invading a country here, because the moon is activating the 10th house. I also have this in a tweet that's probably better to look at. Yeah, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, Down the Rabbit Hole News at downthehole132. So somebody tweeted the full moon is conjunct the U.S. sun, should be important. And I said, good catch. Full moon activating America's natal sun, conjunct within 5 degrees. It's 7. I was wrong. Gemini also holds America's natal Mars, Jupiter, and Venus. We see immediate full-scale invasions, war moves on the lords of self, possessions, expression, conflict, relationships, expenses, and loss are activated by a full moon. So, and then the 8th house is the house of transformation and crisis. So we see these things activated through the 8th house themes, which are crisis and transformation. So, yeah, it's pretty, if you know astrology, like this is like a wow moment. Astrologically, this could be a case study for future people. Happy to talk about this more in a different video if you want, but if this doesn't convince you to get into astrology and like start taking it seriously, I don't know what will. But also just like in general, the fact that America has self, possessions, expression, conflict, relationships, expenses, and loss all in their 8th house, that explains like America's personality through the world. We're conquerors. We take things. Our values, our culture is very distinct, and we express ourselves, I think, across the globe a lot more than other countries do. And Lord of the chart is Mars, and we tend to be pretty violent. So it's crazy. Definitely look into it. And if this doesn't convince you to like dig into your own chart, again, I don't know what will. For me, it really opened my eyes on like who I am as a person. I always thought I like knew who I was. And then once I started digging into my chart about a year and a half ago, and really heavy in 2025, I was validated in the fact that like, yeah, the person that the universe has defined me as, the character they wrote me as, is exactly who I always thought I was. So, and that's part of why I'm sharing all this stuff. Yeah, very interesting. It's like, again, I won't be surprised if this isn't like astrological case study in the future. Wow, we're hitting 25 minutes, so I'm going to keep going. The rest is a science topic, so if you're not into that, you might want to bounce. But health-wise, this is very important, and I think you should listen to this one at least. Vitamin D. I don't even want to say supplements because I think people should focus on getting vitamin D from the sun. I personally have a Sperta lamp, which is a vitamin D sun lamp that I use. I live in the higher states in the United States, and it gets very cold up here, and there's not much sun in the winter. And obviously, like, I'm melanated, so I really used to suffer. I used to really, really suffer in the winter, and once I got my Sperta lamp, winters became like very manageable. It's like night and day. Like I was like down and out every winter, and now I can survive. So maybe one day, you know, if I make a lot of money and my dreams come to fruition, I'll move to some place where I don't got to worry about this. But anyways, the article says a new study suggests that vitamin D supplements may help preserve telomeres, the DNA caps at the end of chromosomes that maintain genetic stability and protect against cell death. So if you guys don't know, like, telomeres have for decades been the answer to longevity. I learned about this in high school and was like, yeah, I think one day when they figure that out, we'll be able to live for a long, long time. So basically, when your DNA replicates, the telomeres start to shorten. They're basically like the binding piece that binds your DNA, and as you get older and older, they start to loosen up every time they replicate, and then your DNA starts to degrade, right? So what they want to do is preserve the telomere length. They get shorter and shorter and shorter as you get older. So whatever you can do to keep your telomeres long, you're gonna live longer. So they figured out that vitamin D seems to slow the shortening of telomeres. If you're melanated, like you, and you live anywhere else that's like below, I don't know the exact like latitude, but probably below like North Carolina, I'm guessing, you probably need some kind of vitamin D supplementation in the winter. And the amount they even tell you to take is like, they've done studies up to, I believe, 100,000 IUs, and shows that even that much is still beneficial. So you need a lot more sunlight than you probably think. Like, we're meant to live in the sun. Here we see telomeres, which are themselves made of DNA, shorten every time a cell divides. This shortening has been linked to aging and to age-related diseases like vascular dementia, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. Yeah, and here's just study details. So TLDR, you need a lot more vitamin D than you think you do. It's very useful in the winter, and in general seems to make you live longer. So if you can handle it, be out in the sun as much as possible. I know you non-melanated people can't really handle it so much, and that's like a different story, but as much as you can. Also, there's like different topic, but there's info out there now that says when you're out in the sun, you should not have sunglasses on, because when you block the light from getting into your sun, it basically tells your body not to prep to be in the sun, and it can lead to sunburn. So if you are worried about that, don't have sunglasses on. Really interesting information, and the more sun you get, the longer you live. Who would have thought? Maybe that's why cultures have reverence for the sun all across time. So last article. New theory from a physicist out in Uppsala, I believe that's Sweden. She basically posits that consciousness, not matter, is the foundation of the universe. And I highlighted some interesting parts. She says consciousness is fundamental. Only thereafter do time, space, and matter arise. This is the starting point for a new theoretical model of the nature of reality presented by Maria Strom, I believe, professor of material science at Uppsala University, and the scientific journal AIP Advances. Article goes on to say that her article presents a framework in which consciousness is not viewed as a byproduct of brain activity, but as a fundamental field underlying everything we experience, matter, space, time, and life itself. Is this a completely new theory of how reality and the universe are structured? She goes on to say, yes, you could say so, but above all, it is a theory in which consciousness comes first. Uniting quantum physics with philosophy, For many years, Strom has worked on a quantum mechanical model that unites quantum physics with non-dual philosophy. The theory is based on the idea that consciousness constitutes the fundamental element of reality, and that individual consciousnesses are part of a larger interconnected field. In this model, phenomena that are now perceived as mysterious, such as telepathy or near-death experiences, can be explained as natural consequences of a shared field of consciousness. Quote, my ambition has been to describe using the language of physics and mathematical tools. Are these phenomena really mystical, or is it simply that there is a discovery we have not yet made, and when we do, it will lead to a paradigm shift? Lastly, her theory also suggests that our individual consciousness does not cease at death, but returns to the universal field of consciousness from which it once emerged. Obviously groundbreaking. I haven't dug into the article itself, the paper itself, but it seems very exciting and worth mentioning that a professor of material science who is well versed with physics and quantum physics and things like that has wrote a paper trying to reconcile, what consciousness is. That's the crazy thing about modern physics is there's no way to explain consciousness. They call it the problem of consciousness, right? It makes no sense based on matter. So hopefully 2026, can you imagine? All these different things are really starting to come to a T, and it's kind of crazy. We live in an exciting time. Things are really popping off. If you're interested about any of these topics, let me know in the comments, and we can dig into it more. If you're interested in the paper, I'll look at more of that, things like that. Also, again, dig into your natal chart. If you're interested to know more about yourself, it's basically imperative that you start looking at your natal chart. You can predict tons of things about your life, things that are going to happen, when you might meet your significant other, when you might get a job, things like that. And also that's also why I'm putting some of this stuff out there. I realize that if I'm going to help astrology become mainstream, which I hope to do because it's helped me so much, the only way to do that is to, one, make predictions that come true, but two, use it as a tool that makes my life visibly better. So if I could get rich by, making astrological predictions that help me time things in my life, like when to invest or get rich from helping people with their own charts, I become a figure in the universe that makes it obvious that this tool works. So I think that's part of my karma, and it's part of what I'm supposed to do. So it's what I'm trying to do. If you want help, like I said, it takes a long time. I would call myself an adept, and there's a lot to dig into. So I haven't really figured out what I might charge to do a reading. If you're in college or something like that, it'll obviously be cheaper because I think this tool should be necessary for young people to really figure out where to go in their life. And I don't want to price those people out. But anyways, hit me up if you're interested. Last thing I'll leave you with is a tweet from Elon Musk. He tweeted today that we have entered the singularity. Again, I don't know what else I can say about 2026. It seems like so many things are coming to a T, and I personally am very glad to be alive in this time. Hopefully I'll be sharing a lot of cool information to you people for the rest of the year and years to come. And lastly, the thing I'll end on is predictions, right? Because I forgot I have to make predictions. I would imagine that this platform sees a bit of an uptick sometime between January 15th to, I believe it was February 22nd. And that it sees an even bigger uptick, I believe October 16th, around then, through end of the next year. And that let me just look because I don't want to be wrong. Where is it at? By 2029, May 2029, you might recognize my face quite a bit. So I don't know. Those are just predictions. I guess we'll see if they come true. And for you to figure out if they do come true, you'll have to come back and check. So go follow my Twitter, like and subscribe to this channel, like this video. Drop a comment if you're curious about anything. Let me know what other topics you might be interested in. Obviously, I'm here to share this information with people. Anything else? I think that's it. This was the first rabbit hole roundup. Hopefully you got some good trails to follow. Again, I'll drop links to all those videos and articles in the description in case you're interested. This was fun. See you at the next one.